Hello, welcome back to Middle East in Depth, part of Levant TV's Press Reviews. The Guardian here in London features an article that looks at ways to tackle ISIS in a way that is smarter than bombs. The writers sent letters to the London-based newspaper presenting those ways. One letter suggests perhaps, in the aftermath of the tragedy on the beach at Sousse in Tunisia, instead of calling for Britain to get involved in bombing Syria, Minister puts case for striking ISIS in Syria on the 2nd of July. Michael Fallon and his fellow MPs should be asking some sober and serious questions about who is actually supporting and sustaining the rampages of the Islamic State across the Middle East and the Maghreb, and then be working out how realistically they can be stopped. At the same time, the writer argues for decades the British have refused to acknowledge the role of Saudi Arabia, obscenely regarded as an ally, an important trading partner, and some of the Gulf states in fostering the growth of jihadist interpretations of Islam and the sadistic aggression that results out of it. And American and British bombs have already fomented resentment and hostility amongst the peoples of Syria and Iraq, alienating them and losing any support they might have otherwise been prepared to offer, without any significant damage to ISIS. Another writer, Gillian Dalley, questions, do we ever ask who is extracting and selling the oil that ISIS now controls and is thus the source of its strength? Who are the skilled operatives drilling and pumping it? Who is buying it? Who is transporting it by sea or pumping it into the pipelines that take it across continents? Do we try to stop any of this, either in the marketplace of international trade or through the hotbed of intrigue that we call worldwide diplomacy? How does ISIS manage to run economies and pay wages in this global world? What role do the banks play? Gillian Dalley concludes, until we work out how they are able to do this and strive to put a stop to it by cutting off the networks of trade, power and influence it uses, it is self-defeating to think we can do it by bombing lands that the West has habitually oppressed and tried unsuccessfully to control for 100 years. Also in the article, Margaret Owen, Patron, Peace in Kurdistan and Director of Widows for Peace Through Democracy, questions why are we not equipping them to maintain their brave fight against this barbarous enemy. She of course talks here about the Kurdish militants in Syria, and then she adds Defence Secretary Michael Fallon is right to argue that the current UK strategy for defeating ISIS in Syria and Iraq is totally, quote, illogical. And amongst other contributors to the article, Paul Hewitson from Berlin in Germany leaves some controversial remarks on what The Guardian referred to the Assad rule as, quote, The Guardian said on the 3rd of July 2015, the loathsome Assad regime and its opponent, some of whom are equally vile, unquote. Paul Hewitson reminds us that the Assad regime has been fighting this enemy for more than 33 years. After the massive defeat of the Muslim Brotherhood by government forces in 1982 in the city of Hama in Syria. He adds, Islamic fundamentalism remained dormant in Syria until furnished with weapons supplied as a result of incompetence rather than malice by the West and its allies. He also says, controversially, the Muslim Brotherhood movement resurfaced relatively recently under the ISIS banner. Other countries operating military flights over Syria appear to be doing so after liaising with President Assad, still the head of the Syrian state. Paul Hewitson then concludes by saying Michael Fallon appears to think this unnecessary. However, without such consultation, these flights are clearly illegal under international law. Quite controversial views there. Let me just clarify that, as usual, we are presenting those views voiced in articles and not necessarily those of our channel. In Lebanon, where the presidential vacuum persists, the Beirut-based Daily Star newspaper seems to have a growing problem with the Free Patriotic Movement General Michel Aoun. Clearly visible in its title, a deadly macabre, a deadly joke, above Aoun's photo in its editorial section. As Lebanon faces threats to its security, economy and very existence, the sight of a politician ranting and raving ceases to be a luxury. It becomes a macabre joke, one with possibly dangerous repercussions. The Daily Star adds that Thursday's diatribe by the Free Patriotic Movement leader Michel Aoun was such an exercise in empty, unhealthy rhetoric. The Daily Star editorial suggests that Aoun's anger boils down to a simple premise. He is the only person eligible to be elected president, and members of his extended family are the only people who are eligible to hold certain other public posts. The Daily Star accuses Aoun, the former army chief, of suggesting that if things he demands don't come to pass, then the Christian community is being deprived of its rights. The editor then adds, "This joke isn't funny anymore." In his typical March 14 tone, the Daily Star advises Aoun's constituency and perhaps his allies should realize that the former general appears interested in only one thing, leading Lebanon into uncharted waters, a journey that is unlikely to achieve what he's promising himself or his supporters. That was it for today's analysis. For more updates, please visit levant.tv or subscribe to Middle East in Depth on iTunes. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.